Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Welcome to Moose Lodge. I'm here today because it is wet and cold and I'm not going outside to film today. So welcome to my nice warm sort of wood cabin where we're going to have a chat today to answer a question and really for a much wider dialogue from one of my viewers. Now a viewer who I'm not going to identify for obvious reasons contacted me and asked me my opinion on a watch decision which he is in the process of making. Now this gentleman has a number or quite a nice collection of watches and he's of a mind to trade in two of his watches. Now this is both two Rolex Datejust 41mm watches, stainless steel. He's going to trade them in, and out of that money which he releases from those watches, it's his intention, or he is thinking of buying a Rolex Day-Date, one of the most iconic watches of all time. And he's asked me my opinion on it. Well, the reason why this question resonated with me, believe it or not, is because I've been having exactly the same thoughts. Now I've got about 5 Rolex watches in my collection, or not about, exactly 5 watches, 3 of which are what I would describe as sports watches, right? I've got 2 GMT Masters and I've got 1 Submariner. And I've kind of fallen out of love with these larger proportion, quite chunky sports watches. And I'm of a mind myself to really, sort of recreate my small watch collection into maybe just 1 or 2 pieces which I really love and I can wear for the rest of my life. And I too have been thinking about going down the route of the iconic Rolex Day-Date. Now I'm going to give you some reasons why I've been having these thoughts, but first of all, let's just understand a little bit more about the Day-Date. The Rolex Day-Date came into being in 1956 when Rolex brought it out. Now it bears a striking resemblance to its younger sibling, the Datejust, which I'm wearing now. I've got a Rolex 36mm Datejust on my wrist, stainless steel, Jubilee bracelet, fluted bezel. Some of these elements are also common to the Day-Date. It's got the fluted bezel in its sort of classic form. However, it doesn't have a Jubilee bracelet, it doesn't have an Oyster bracelet. It has its own bracelet, only available on the Day-Date, and that is a bracelet which has come to be called the President. It's a 3-piece linked bracelet, which has got semi-circular elements to the bracelet, and it is very, very distinctive. When you see a President bracelet, you know that bracelet must be attached to a Day-Date watch because that's the only watch that bracelet comes with. Now the watch itself, as I say, quite distinctive. Oyster case, fluted bezel, but always made of precious metal because the Day-Date has only ever been available in precious metal, which makes it a watch which fundamentally, when you see, makes you form an impression about it. Now when it first came out, the Day-Date was somewhat groundbreaking because of its unusual complications. It doesn't sound unusual to us today, but actually having the date and the day written out in full above the 12 o'clock or the 12 o'clock indice on the dial made it highly unusual, and it was, as I say, groundbreaking. This was a watch which was immediately, sort of launched into iconic status, and it has remained so since 1956. It's graced the wrists of some of the most famous celebrities, but also it's been a favoured watch of world leaders, which has led to it acquiring its nickname of the President, because it's been favoured by presidents of the United States as well as many more famous world leaders as time has passed. So it's quite a watch, and it still looks very much the same today. Even after 60 odd plus years, or 70 years, you still will recognise the Day-Date as bearing its sort of familiar relationship to the first ones which came out in 1956. Very distinctive, very attractive watch. Now, I've got 5 reasons today why I'm thinking about selling off some of my watches which I've fallen out of love with and trading them in for a Day-Date. And I'll tell you the one which I'm interested in at the end. But first of all, let me tell you why I think the day date is appealing to me. Firstly, its prestige and its status is appealing to many, because it's an icon. You know, when you see one on somebody's wrist, it just screams, this is a watch which is owned by people who understand power, strength, and the value of things. It's been owned by world leaders. It's been seen on the wrist of the likes of Elton John. Even the Dalai Lama has worn a day date for many years. Status-wise, when it comes to the sort of media, I remember for me growing up as a kid, you know, one of my favourite television programmes was Miami Vice. The lead, handsome, well-dressed character, Sonny Crockett, that Vice detective, what did he have on his wrist? A yellow gold day date, of course, and that's where it perhaps sticks in my mind as being, you know, the watch to own for the classy fellow. Even to the modern day, celebrities choose the day date because of its timeless style. I recently saw an image of the actor Chris Hemsworth, Thor himself, from the Marvel series, and what did he have on his wrist? A day date in platinum. So really drew the eye, and you start to salivate when you see, you know, the chinks of light coming off the facets of that fluted bezel. It has a way of drawing you in, and it kind of, if you put that watch on your wrist, it certainly elevates your status as well, because people see it, they recognize it, they know what you're wearing, and it becomes part of, you know, the aura that you project to others around you. Now, the next reason why I think the day date is drawing me in is very much because of its iconic design. As I say, it is still highly identifiable as that watch which was released in 1956. It hasn't evolved terribly much. So you know that in another 50, 60, 70 years, it's still going to be equally iconic as it is today. So you know, if you buy that watch, you're not going to buy something which, you know, the brand is going to change and your watch is going to become obsolete overnight. That watch is always going to be classic, always going to be timeless, and it's always, you know, something you can turn to and know that it's going to be the right piece to wear, regardless of the situation. Now, the other advantage of that iconic design is, I think, it lends itself to a little more dressiness than perhaps this modern trend where people for the last 5 or 6 years have certainly been buying into much larger, chunkier, I would say clunkier, what people now describe as tool watches, but are effectively, you know, sports watches. And I'm talking about the Rolex Submariner, the Rolex GMT Master 2, and their, you know, equivalents in all the other brands. They're normally over 40 millimeters. They tend to be quite large off the wrist, and they're not the natural fit for the sartorially minded gentleman who perhaps wears a watch which will easily slide under the cuff of his shirt. You want something which is, I'm not going to say understated, because I don't think anybody can say the day date's understated, but it's a watch which can be quite easily tucked up the sleeve and it doesn't cause you any problems at all. I quite like that element to the day date. It's not so large that it dominates one's appearance. Now, the other thing with a day date, you're always going to know it is made from exquisite materials. It's always been exclusively made of precious metal. And in the current world, it's available in yellow gold, white gold, Everose gold, and platinum. Now, gold has always been a head turner for me. I love gold. There's something about the permanence of that element, you know, its imperviousness to water, the fact that it's, you know, available, or it's found in its natural form on the planet, and we just convert it into these precious things. It's the weight of it, the heft of it. There is something about gold which demands respect. And that's not just because of its value, but it is a very attractive thing. Now, Rolex make their own gold. If you can make your own gold, they create their own formulas of gold. Their yellow gold is 18 karat, and it's created in their own foundry. Their Everose gold, for instance, is created by having yellow gold and introducing other elements like copper, platinum, and so on to give it that pinky hue of Everose, as they call it. You've got their white gold, which is, again, their own formulation, and platinum. Now, platinum is one of the rarest naturally occurring elements on planet Earth. in comparison to the abundant gold, it is truly rare. And it does command a much higher price point because of that. You know, at the very least, when you buy a day date, if you bought a yellow gold one, you're going to be talking 33,000 British pounds. Platinum, by comparison, is nearly double that. So when you see a platinum watch on somebody's wrist, you know they are a person who has the ability to spend that sort of money on a watch, and you can draw your own conclusions about that person when you see that. And finally, my last reason for saying that I'm drawn towards the day date is the huge variety of choice. Now, I've told you there's 4 materials available. You've also got 2 case sizes, 36mm and 40mm. As I say, I'm rather drawn towards the more classical sizes of watch. I really have come to love my 36mm Datejust because it's an unobtrusive watch, fits under the sleeve. It's just a really comfortable size for me as an average size guy with a 6.5-inch wrist. If you're a larger person, you've got the 40mm option in the day date. So you've got both sides of the base covered. In addition to the case size and the case material, there are literally dozens of dial variations which are open to you, from quite simple ones to diamond paved versions and the most garish colours that you could find. It depends on your personality. If there's a watch there, or I'm sure there's a watch there which will fit your character, that you would like to, you know, put on your wrist and look at for the rest of your life. Now, before I tell you my picks, what I would choose, I've given you 4 reasons why I would like to look at a day date. I'm going to give you some of the reasons that I'm weighing up, the cons which may put me off that choice. Now, firstly is the cost, all right? Because it's made of precious metal, it is vastly expensive, even the lower level models. So, and I say lower level, you know, yellow gold 18 karat is about £32,000. It goes up and up depending on the complexity of the dial that you have, because there's diamond variants. And if you get into, you know, your platinum range, as I say, it's about £58,500. Huge sums of money, way beyond the average annual income here in the UK. So, you know, it's a huge amount of money to invest in a watch. It's something which you really have to think about. And that spills into my second reason why it does worry me about buying a day date, if I were to take that choice, and that's the fear of loss and the fear of theft. Because when you see somebody wearing a watch like that, it immediately may single them out as a potential victim of crime. You know, if you wear a watch which is worth more than a person can earn in a year, you're going to end up exposing yourself to risk. And that's something you have to consider. Do you really want to have to think about where you're going in conjunction with the watch that you're wearing? You have to make lifestyle decisions, where you're going to be, when you're going to be there, depending on the watch that you're wearing. That is a really big thing for me. And the last con for me, is the perception of others. Because owning a day date really does come with a societal expectation about you as the watch wearer. People are going to make the assumption that you're wealthy, that you have the ability to put that sort of money in a watch. It's going to say something about you. It might not be true. People will not know that you've been saving up for a lifetime, or you've had a legacy come in from a relative who's died, and you have decided that, to mark that occasion, you want to buy a special wristwatch. They don't know that. All they see is a hugely expensive watch on your wrist, and they're going to draw an opinion about you because of that. So you have to be careful. People are going to think you're a celebrity, because celebrity wear these sort of watches. They're going to, pay an interest in you, if nothing else. And some people, well, myself included, the thought of conspicuous wealth is unpalatable. I do not like the idea of people looking at me and drawing a conclusion, or me flexing, as this term has come to mean now, flexing a hugely expensive piece in a public place. I'm not that sort of guy. I mean, whilst I deeply appreciate these watches, I certainly wouldn't want to flash them around to give people the idea that I'm wealthy, or I've got a very high opinion of myself and I'm wearing that as a watch. Not at all. So you have to weigh up the pros and the cons. So which one would I choose if I was going to make that decision? Well, for me, it's going to be a 36mm case, because I'm, as I say, a sort of medium-sized guy. I've got a 36mm watch on my wrist at the moment, so I know they fit proportionately for my stature. A 40mm piece is going to make it that much larger. So for me, 36mm is the way to go. The case material, Everose gold. Now, I love all types of gold, I really do, but Everose gold for me has just got a little bit more class to it. It's got that sort of pinky cast to the colour, which for me just makes it a little more interesting, and it's just a little more fascinating. The yellow gold, perhaps it's because we've seen yellow gold for time immemorial. Yellow gold is, you know, what everybody considers gold, but that pink gold, or Everose gold as Rolex call it, just a little bit more special for me. Now, the dial choice for me is going to be really simple. I would like a white dial with Roman numeral hour markers as indices. It's really classic. It's really simple. And that means it's a watch which I'm never going to get tired with. I'm not going to get bored with it because it's timeless in its appearance. Now, if I was a little more garish, and I have considered this, the other option I would be drawn to, and I should say the one I've just chosen, that would be £32,000. So that's bad enough as it is. But the other alternative for me would be the 36mm Everose still, but with the turquoise dial. Now, this is a natural turquoise dial, so each dial is going to be unique. No two are ever going to look the same. It's got Roman numeral indices, hour markers, but they are picked out in diamonds. So it's just that little bit more spectacular. Takes the price up to 41,000 British pounds. So a giant sum of money. But, you know, we can fantasize, can't we? If I was a little bit larger, I would definitely still stay with Everose gold, but I do like, within the 40mm case, the olive green variant. Now, I know this is very popular, but it is just a absolutely delicious pairing of the Everose gold and that olive green sunburst dial. It just kills it, I think, when it comes to classiness. So in conclusion, what are my thoughts with the day date? Well, it is a symbol of luxury, it is a symbol of class, and it is absolutely a watch which I think is always going to be at the top of the pyramid of the Rolex tree when it comes to iconic status. So it's a watch which I think you can invest in if you've got the funds, which will still look good in 50 or 60 years' time. And should you need to do so, you could always liquidate it and find yourself, you know, releasing those funds at some point in the future. So there we go. I hope you've enjoyed this video today on my sort of ramblings about whether I would like to go down the route of a Rolex date, or maybe, you know, stay as I am and keep the watches in my collection I've currently got. I'm still undecided. I hope it's helped my viewer who posed me that question, because I get the sense he is definitely going in that path. So there we go. If you have enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up. See more like this, click subscribe. If you'd like to send me a message, do it in the comment section, or you can send me an email. You'll find my email address on the screen. If you'd like to support the channel, you could buy me a coffee, or you could even become a patron, and I make additional video content for my patrons, and you'll find the information to all of this in the show notes below this video. So until the next time, take care, and I'll see you again very soon.